Hello, everyone. Um, Today we're not having a simulation. We are having a end of the year review to discuss the challenges that the IPC has and what we have accomplished up to now, and what would be for the next year. We are the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. My name is Joseph Avesar, and my email is josephavassar@gmail.com. We have a website. The website is ipconfederation.org. And in the website, you can see the website is in 3 languages: English, Arabic, and Hebrew. And you can read the Constitution that we are proposing for the creation of a common government. You can read also the frequently asked questions, which explains the Constitution and explains the mechanism and the relationship between the Israeli and the Palestinian government with the common government that we are proposing. So if you slide down, you'll see, if you look up here, you'll see the Constitution and you'll be able to read it. It's a very interesting read, and it deals with the constellation of having a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine side by side with the Israeli and the Palestinian governments. So that, we're going to have, starting next year with more simulations. Our first simulation is going to be, for next year, is going to be with Joseph Agassi. Joseph Agassi is kind of known to be as Israel's philosopher. He's very well known in Israel. If you look him up on YouTube, you'll see many meetings and speeches that he has given. He is Israeli. He was born in Israel, and he believes that Israel is making a mistake, a big mistake, with regard to the settlers allowing. Well, his belief is, from what I understand, is that Israel should terminate its relationship with the world Jewry, in the sense that they should not be given a almost automatic entry into Israel, because he believes that Jews from all over the world are creating situations in which Israel is losing its own independence. So he's a very interesting person, and he's not afraid to tell the truth. We then have on January 22nd, Nurit Peled El-Hanan. She is a professor of education. She is very much in favor of making peace with the Palestinians. She lost her daughter to a suicide bomber, and but she does not necessarily blame Israel for it. She blames the whole failure to make peace. So she should be very interesting as well. On February 5th, we have Richard Falk. Richard Falk is an international lawyer. He was a UN envoy to Israel-Palestine, and he wrote a report that the Israelis did not like, and I believe he's barred from entering Israel after his report. For those of you who may remember, Richard Falk was scheduled to be in our simulations before. He canceled because of, he wrote a letter. I published a letter in our website, and he said that he has reservations about, these are my general understanding, that he has reservations about peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, while acknowledging Israel as a legitimate country. I'm hoping that I am expressing his views correctly, but he'll be able to tell us his thinking. And then we have coming up on February 19, Doron Navot, who is a political science professor. He's also a reporter in Israeli media. He reports mostly about Israeli Arabs and Palestinians. And I heard an interview with him. I thought he is brilliant in terms of his ability to objectively analyze the situation, and he graciously agreed to come to our simulations. So that a reminder, the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation believes in the creation of a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine that would exist, that would be created while keeping the current governments, the Israelis and the Palestinian governments, intact. In other words, we do not believe in the dismantling of the Israeli or the Palestinian governments. And we believe that side by side, the Israeli and the Palestinian government, it would be possible to create a common government. That government will be independent and separate from the current government. It will be elected separately and independently from the Israeli and the Palestinian government, but it would include it would give an option for the 14 million people in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza to vote for a common government based on secular democratic principles with 3 branches of government: parliament, a executive branch, and a judicial branch, all equal to Israelis and Palestinians. In my opinion, this should have been done in 1947, but be that as it may, we think it is still possible to do it today. By the way, this government, the government for the whole area, would be the only legitimate government for the area, because by definition, the Israeli government is not elected by the Palestinians, and the Palestinian governments are not elected by the Israelis. We are proposing a common government that will be elected by both Palestinians and Israelis in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel, 14 million people, and will be the only legitimate government for the entire area. And if we are able to achieve an election, and we have millions of people voting, then it will be a political powerhouse that will force the Israeli and the Palestinian governments to accept decisions that are made by 300 parliament members, Palestinians and Israelis together. But this is not the purpose of, we are not doing a simulation now. We are, so I just wanted to remind you what we stand for. But we have huge obstacles, and it's not only us that have the obstacles. There are inherent obstacles to peace. You know, if someone asked me, what is the most difficult part in making peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, I would say it's not the difficulty of getting a formula. There are various formulas. The difficulty is the state of mind of Israelis and Palestinians, and almost worldwide, that Israelis and Palestinians do not deserve peace, are not able to make peace, that they are almost like a racist observation, a racist state of mind. And I'm generalizing, I know, that Palestinians and Israelis are born to fight each other to the death. So by Israelis and Palestinians, and mostly by Israelis, peace is not something good. Peace is the enemy. This is one of the obstacles that we have for peace. In other words, it's much better from a Israeli point of view, and some Palestinians too, to remain in a state of war, because peace is not good. War will get us something that we want, and the war itself is a good state of existence. The war itself, because it galvanizes the Israelis, it galvanizes the Palestinians, and the world accept that unaccepted reality that Israelis and Palestinians are forever doomed to be at war with each other. So we created an anti-peace consciousness worldwide and in Israel. That's the enemy that we have, not the formula, but the unwillingness of the international community, the Israeli community, the Palestinian community, to accept the idea that peace is superior to anything else. And therefore they create fear of peace, fear of each other. That peace, if we have peace, we have to start thinking about what will happen if there is peace. They don't even get to that stage. There is a fear of peace. If you speak about peace between Israelis, two Israelis, especially Israelis, they are mocking you. I had that personally happen to me when I'm being mocked for the idea of having peace between Israelis and Palestinians. They accept the conflict as the conflict that galvanizes us together and is necessary for the existence of a Jewish state, for existence of Israel. And so therefore we create pessimism about peace, and we permanently suppress the idea of peace. And we have an international acceptance of the abusive relations between Israelis and Palestinians. We accept it as if it is the natural state of event. In my opinion, that's an international political malpractice. Malpractice, in the legal sense, is when a doctor, for example, perform his services below the standard of care. There is standard of care, and if the doctor perform his services below the standard of care, that's malpractice. In Israel-Palestine, it is worse, because there is no standard. The standard of peace is unacceptable, is unimaginable. It is not within what the Israelis and the Palestinians or the world see as a possibility for Israel-Palestine. So there is an international political malpractice, in my opinion. That's what I see as take, for example, Barack Obama. I like Barack Obama. I voted for him. And I was very, very happy when he ran. You remember his slogan, "Yes, we can, yes, we can." It was a terrific slogan. But it turned out to be, "Yes, we can" for America. But that slogan that he believed in, "Yes, we can," doesn't apply to Israel-Palestine. Barack Obama understand, and all the presidents understand, that the key to making peace is the separation between religion and government. The key to making a peace is to have a common government. He was the president of the federal government. He understands it better than all of us. And so he accepts the idea of separation between church and state for Israel, for America. He accepts the idea of a common government. But for Israel and Palestine, the yes, we can doesn't apply. Didn't apply. He ended up supporting the exact opposite: segregation by way of two states, segregation between Israelis and Palestinians based on religion, nothing else, separating, which is the opposite of his values in America. Like I said, I supported him, but this demonstrates the international malpractice that I'm speaking about. Remember his slogan, there is no red state, there is no blue state, there is the United States. Yes, but for Israel and Palestine, he supported segregation based on religion. This is to demonstrate the unacceptable double standard that the international community, in my opinion, has when it comes to Israel-Palestine. What's good for people, for making peace everywhere else, is not even imaginable for Israel-Palestine. Hillary Clinton, stronger together. That's her slogan. Beautiful slogan, stronger together, except not for Israel-Palestine. For Israel-Palestine, she kept saying the only solution is two states. She understands that it is stronger together to be together, but for Israel-Palestine, for a little tiny area, the standards are opposite. And we're not really challenging them on that. I don't think there was ever a question to Obama or to Hillary, why do you have, why is it yes, we can to America, but not yes, we can to Israel? Why are you giving so many weapons when to Israel to continue with the separation with the Palestinians? Why is stronger together not good for Israel-Palestine? In my opinion, there is the nonchalant acceptability of the conflict as a perpetual reality. We just accept that reality of a conflict, of violence. We accept it, that it will stay forever. And this is the difficulty that we are having, and I'm having, is not to convey the message of having a common government, is to rise above the threshold that peace is a possibility. This cartoon perfectly explains what I'm talking about. This came up several years ago, and here you have the last Israeli buried all the Israeli people, the last Palestinian buried all the Palestinian people. And what do? They take the shovel and they fight each other. The last Israeli and the last Palestinians fight each other to death. That's the perception. That's the worldwide perception, in my opinion. And that's the most difficult part of the IPC, is to convey the idea that Israelis and Palestinians are not by nature violent people, that we are not there to kill each other to the death. That peace, based on this cartoon, whoever wrote this cartoon, Mike Lukovich, his perception, I think it reflects the world's perception, the Israeli and the Palestinians' perception, that they are incapable, that the value of peace that is acceptable everywhere in the world is not acceptable. It's not a possibility for Israel-Palestine. So that's the challenge, is not to convey a good formula. I think it's a good formula, but the challenge is to convey the idea that Israelis and Palestinians are entitled to live in peace, to have equality for peace, to have the same standard of peaceful existence as the whole world. So up to now, the IPC, we were able to have 100 simulations, almost 100 simulations. I didn't really count exactly, but I've been doing this now for several years, and many of the simulations were before students and before the pandemic. And really, thanks to Dan and his mother Ruth, we converted the simulation to Zoom. But I did many simulations before that, and some of them are available on YouTube. Many are available on YouTube. So we were able to achieve the simulations. We were able to achieve some recognition by the public and by intellectuals. Now, if you ask me about what is the level of recognition that you were able to achieve, so I can tell you this: if total recognition is 100%, in my opinion, when I'm speaking total recognition, I mean worldwide recognition, or in Israel, Palestine, we are at a level of maybe 1 or 2%. That's where we are, which in my opinion is still good, because it's to rise up from 0 to 1 or 2% is a tremendous accomplishment. Yeah, no, it's not what we want to be, but 1 and 2% under the circumstances, of death, under the circumstances of the acceptability of the conflict as a perpetual reality. Under these realities, that peace is not for Israel Palestine, to reach 1 or 2%, in my opinion, is respectable. But I noticed in the last year or 2 or 3 that we get a lot more support from Palestinians than Israelis. Israelis do not like this common government, but they are unable to articulate. If you notice in the simulations, when we bring an Israeli, and I say, well, why are you against it? He would say, no, I am in favor of this, but I don't think it's going to happen. And then he usually says, well, the Israeli government will not allow it, or you're not going to get support, or whatever. But Israelis understand that the IPC will bring equality between them and the Palestinians, but they don't want to articulate that. So they don't want equality between Israelis and Palestinians. So therefore, they do not like the IPC formula. Palestinians overall like it a lot. The other thing that in the simulations, and I don't know if you noticed, like in the last few simulations, we conduct a survey, and we see with those people that participate in the simulation, it's true that many are repetitive, but even we see an increase when we do a survey, an increase when people understand how the common government will go, and we get support for the simulation, for the common government, somewhere between 70 to 80%, which is very, very encouraging. So what are our plans for next year? To have more Zoom simulations and to have more in-person simulations. The in-person simulations, usually before students, are very, very difficult to get because the professors don't want to appear biased in favor of Israel or Palestine, and it's very hard for them to understand, and they don't want to take a risk. It's very hard to get, but I can tell you, I've done many of them. They are terrific. They are the best simulations because the students or the people who participate in it, what I usually do is I give a blue ribbon to some. I say, who are you? Who is Palestinians? And I give them a green ribbon. And who is Israeli? I give them blue ribbon. And they are acting as Israeli and Palestinian parliament members. And then we get, like we do always, we have people volunteer to be Israeli prime minister, Hamas leader, and a PA leader. And usually the professor is the president of the United States. But it works beautifully. The students are so engaged and they ask questions upon questions. I can tell you, like this simulation before, I think it was in Kalamakaana, I forgot the name of the college. Every student, these are the students that agreed to have their picture taken. There were twice as many in the sim. Every student asked 3, 4, 5 questions. It was tremendous. It was 2 hours of sheer energetic event, and the students loved it, and they were challenged. And I think it's terrific to have these in-person simulations. So we want to do more in-person simulations. I write to a lot of professors emails, and hopefully we'll get some more. Professor here is Mark Jengersmeyer. He had about 3 or 4 of these simulations with me with his students. So we also want to have a write-in campaign for exposure to the media. So if you ask me, Joseph, how are you going to get a common government? And when are you going to get that? I would say to you, it's not going to be in the next year. There's not going to be a start in the next year. Remember, I said we are in 1% or 1.5% recognition, maybe even 0.5%. Okay. What we need is exposure to the media. If we get exposure to the media, I write to many opinion and people in the media, Tom Friedman and many others, and they don't even respond. They don't recognize. They suffer from this. They suffer from this disease. And for me to tell them, hey, there is a possibility of making peace, they are not able to They're not able to overcome their cynicism. They're not able to overcome their preconceived notions that peace is an impossibility for Israel and Palestine, that the people of Israel and Palestine are there to kill each other and to the death, and there is no peace. And they suffer from the disease, in my opinion, that the only solution is the two-state solution, and the only solution would come from the governments, which are the worst offenders of lack of peace. So I am proposing a writing campaign, and I'm asking you to help with that, if possible, and to write to your newspaper, to write to your media person, whoever it is. This is the letter that you may want to send, not necessarily, but this is the letter that you may choose to send. And the letter said, "Dear newspaper, I participated in peace simulation conducted by an organization called the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. They invite speakers to stress test their formula for peace. Notable people such as Dennis Ross, Peter Beinart, Noam Chomsky, Alan Dershowitz, Cornel West, Gideon Levy, and Aaron David Miller were some of the few who spoke of those events and praised it. The simulations are conducted twice a month on Zoom. I was very skeptical and joined the simulation out of curiosity. I must say that I was surprised. This organization has an intriguing approach to solving the conflict. I urge you to join one of the simulations and provide coverage. Their website is ipconfederation.org, where you could sign up for one of their future events." So I know I have some people in the media that are on the verge of writing about it. There is one person in particular that he said to me, if you have a big name appearing in the simulation, let me know and then I'll write about it. They need an excuse. It's very hard for them to accept it in a vacuum, to accept it. So what is our goal for 2023? The goal is not to create the common government. The goal is to have press coverage. If we get press coverage, in my opinion, we will be able to rise up from the 1% to 5%. And if we're able to rise up to 5%, then it would be like, it would ignite to 10, 20%. Then we will have legitimacy. Then the worldwide legitimacy, we will be recognized. That right now we are not recognized. And we will be able to do what's necessary in order to create a common government. Creating a common government is a huge project. It's a possibility, but it requires, in my opinion, at least 20 people that are full-time employees. It requires a large budget. It requires people who understand Arabic, Hebrew, and English to translate everything. It's a very large, and to respond. The other thing that we are suffering from, which is similar to what I said, is the anti-peace perception. The people that are afraid from peace, and what they do, I see that constantly. They misrepresent what the IPC stands for, or they do not want to understand what the IPC, and they completely give a different description of the IPC. So in order to have a common government, in order to actually make this thing happen, we will need an army of people to respond to all these misrepresentations and misstatements. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and open myself to questions if you have any questions. Yeah, hi, Libby.
Hi, I don't know if you've ever really shared what motivated you to get started in this to begin with, because you yourself are Jewish and I think Israeli as well. And I think hearing what, I mean, you may not want to go on and on a long story, but I think what motivated you to do this? What has helped free you from the Jewish community to take a stand on something so controversial?
That's a very good question, and it's a complicated. Bottom line, I can tell you that I realized, you know, I lived in Israel. I was in the, I went through the Israeli educational system. I was a Zionist by default. I'd never understood what Zionism means, but, you know, just like any other Israeli, I served in the Israeli military, and little by little, I realized that a lot of what I know, a lot of what I was told was either direct misrepresentation or concealing facts from me. And the more I got involved, and then I saw the Palestinians in a completely different light, and I saw their suffering, and I started to get more and more into the West Bank, and I tried to get to Gaza, but I couldn't. And I realized that the Palestinians are human beings just like me, just like us. I am of Arab descent. I saw the Palestinians, they look like me, they look like my uncles, my father, my mother. And I saw this a tremendous injustice that is being done here. And plus I was almost personal, no, I can't say, but that's the general answer, is that I really saw this a complete unjustifiable situation, and someone has to do it. And, you know, when I was a kid, I remember when I was a kid, I always thought that there are some good people in America that are old and wise, and eventually they would make us do the right thing, whatever the right thing was. I just had the general concept, the general idea in my head. And then I realized, hey, the old people in America is me. You know, so, okay, Charles.
Have you ever done a classroom presentation at Santa Monica College? And I assume you've done some at UCLA. Are there various professors there that we could ask that have not been worked on yet?
I've done it at Santa Monica. I don't think it's a part of Santa Monica College. It's kind of like an adult college.
Emeritus, the emeritus.
Yeah. Oh. And they loved it. They loved it. It was we had a great time. They enjoyed it so much, except that they just saw it as a theoretical exercise, but they loved it. Yes, I've done it. But Santa Monica, look, the professors are scared. They're scared of this conflict. They're very, very hard to get them to agree to it. They don't want to put themselves on the line. So, John Mitchell.
Sorry, was that me?
Yeah. John?
Hello? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Joseph, yeah, Joseph. Yeah, okay. You know, when I hear the words peace and conflict, I get the strong impression that it's a symmetrical situation, which it isn't, of course. It's like a prisoner and a jailer discussing the options of being imprisoned or being given freedom. And with the Palestinians and Israel, it's not a symmetrical situation whatsoever. The issue is the end of occupation. Now, and that's going to happen, whether it's going to be a confederation or whatever, whichever solution comes forward, that will not come from Israel, but it will come from the United States. And given, you mentioned Barack Obama, as far as I'm concerned, he's a war criminal. When he spoke when he gave his speech at Cairo shortly after he became president, it sounded very optimistic.
John,
but the political reality
you're fading away in and
flattened
out.
him in
Is
his
there
negotiations with Netanyahu. For example,
John, can you get closer
Um,
to your microphone?
yeah.
Can you get closer to your
I can't,
microphone?
can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me now?
But he's breaking up. That's the problem.
Yeah.
His connection is,
Okay, I don't know. Yeah. Did you hear me speaking
Yeah.
about?
You're breaking
that?
up.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Did you hear me talking about Barack Obama?
Yeah,
Yes.
Obama's a war criminal.
Okay,
We got
carry on. I'll
that.
see what I can do. Carry on. Carry on to someone else.
Okay, so from what I understand from you, you were saying,
Well,
I thought you were saying that the United States can make peace. And I thought you said that Barack Obama, in your opinion, is a war criminal.
well, given Barack Obama's presidential presence over 3 conflicts or 3 bombings of Gaza, when you consider the 2014
I can't hear you,
Operation,
John.
Protective Edge, that was so criminalized that Israel ran out of meat. Okay. Ask someone else, Joseph,
Yeah.
and
Okay,
I'll
well,
try and do something here.
Okay, let me respond to what you may have asked. Because this question comes up a lot about whether the only way peace could be made is if the United States imposes peace on Israel-Palestine. And look, the United States believes in secular democracy. The United States believes in due process. The United States believes in constitution. The United States believes in separation between government and religion. The United States believes in a common federal government. But when it comes to Israel, the United States supports segregation between Jews and Palestinian based on religion. That's the only difference, is religion. The United States has no problem with a country that has no constitution. The United States does not support a country, Israel, that has integrated religion into the government, which is the opposite of the United States values. The United States is the biggest suppliers of weapons to the area. So to hold our hope that, and that's been going on for many, many years, and it gives free weapons, not only provides weapons, but it gives them free. The United States is the last entity that would be able to make peace in Israel-Palestine, in my opinion. Olivia.
now I've unmuted. Joseph, thank you, and it's been nice to see you. And hi to all the others. Libby's last comment in the chat, I think, is very much to the point. Libby has mentioned about the arms industry. As you say, the free arms, the 3.8 billion arms that are handed over as a little present to Israel have got a lot to do with no conditions. If they conditioned their gift of arms, plus their diplomatic and political support, the arms industry, we have to believe, we understand, is the number one, has the most powerful lobby in Washington. The second are the rifle people, the ANF, whatever they're called. The third is AIPAC. Now, these are facts. They're not sort of things that we invent. This means income, it means jobs. US politicians feel it's their duty to protect jobs in their homeland. So that is a crucial element. I go along with everything that Libby says, because she's a rock of common sense. Now, something else, quite recently, the government, the incoming Israeli government, I think they're going to have trouble with the Americans. And perhaps, who knows, we hope, we don't know, somebody, some diplomat or somebody might whisper into Mr. Netanyahu's ear, watch it, buddy, you're treading on ice. I mean, just look at the people that are going to have important ministries.
Libby,
just look at these guys. Now, I am an outsider, so bear in mind that of course I can say nonsense. I'm allowed to say nonsense, but I'm just saying what I understand from reading about what's happening. This incoming government could really spark another intifada. This guy, Mr. Ben Gvir, has a record of inciting, let's say, inciting intolerance of
Zoom.
So it's. I mean, the Americans are not happy with this, and let's hope that something will change. Things don't change overnight, but even small changes. If the Americans were to condition their arms, they're not just going to stop giving arms to Israel. We know that. If they were to say, hey, look what you're doing right now. You know, you're going over the top, guys. Watch it. I don't know. I've read some interesting articles recently, one by Gideon Levy, that says that Mr. I can't pronounce his name, but Ben Gvir, the guy that's going to have the Ministry of Security of all things. It's appalling, Joseph. It's way over the top. It's an appalling situation for Palestinians who have been suffering year after year after year. They've been humiliated and downtrodden and shot and arrested. We know all that. But it can only get worse with these guys in power, huge power. For who? For Netanyahu, who will then vote some kind of law that means his judiciary things don't go ahead. Basically, the guy's trying to stay out of prison, wants to get some sort of permanent parliamentary immunity, or cancel all his stuff with the judges. It's appalling. It's appalling. So I feel I've said enough. I'd like to hear comments from other people, from Palestinians. I'd love to hear comments from Palestinians.
Let me tell you what I'm thinking about what you said.
Of course, please do.
Yeah. Many people think that the United States, well, you basically said similar things, that the United States is getting fed up with Israel. The United States has been fed up with Israel for many years. But let me remind you that it was Netanyahu who humiliated Obama in the White House and gave a speech
Absolutely
in front of the press to Obama, who sat there quiet and was humiliated basically in front of the press. It was Netanyahu who came in to Congress and spoke to Congress directly, ignoring the president of the United States. It was Shamir who ignored Bush and demanded $10 billion of guarantees, even though Baker was trying to put pressure on Israel. So what does it tell you? to me, it tells me, and Netanyahu, and one more thing, Obama, after he was humiliated twice, what did he do? He guaranteed 10 years of additional weapons to Israel. So try to look at it from an objective point of view. Who has the power here? Is it the United States or is it Israel? In my opinion, Israel understands that the United States wants to give it weapon and to give it political protection more than Israel needs it. The United States, if I guarantee you 10 years of billions and billions of dollars, I have some motivation to do that. And Israel understands it. And Israel understands.
Yes.
So going back to what I told John earlier, it's not going to come from Israel. It's not going to come from America. Peace is going to come from Palestinians, from Israelis, from the world who will challenge the presupposed assumption that Israelis and Palestinians are destined to be in war forever. And I would really appreciate if someone could, I don't know if my message went through or not. What I said, I think that's the obstacle. The obstacle is that we believe that the Israelis and the Palestinians do not deserve peace, do not want peace, are incapable of peace, and they should be in war forever.
But the arms are nourishing all that, Joseph. I think the arms are nourishing all that.
I'm sorry?
Supporting all that. I think the arms from the US are nourishing, are helping Israel do what it does. I think
Of course, Israel accepted. Yeah. Ruth Persky. Hi, Ruth.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Yes, Joseph, we want to get exposure in the press. I don't know a way we can do that. I'm thinking of two newspapers, the Jewish Daily Journal, which is very influential, and the Los Angeles Times. I'm wondering how many people among your LA crowd subscribe to the Los Angeles Times, and so a letter would certainly be appropriate for that. And if we send them in within the next week or two, that would be great.
Oh, that's
and
terrific.
Also, there are so many synagogues. I know a synagogue, Ikar, that I belong to, conservative synagogue. They are hosting an Israeli Palestinian organization representatives this week, I believe. And so you would be a perfect fit for their congregation, and I will certainly.
Oh, I appreciate it. If you want me to email you the text of that letter, I'll be happy to do that, and you can change it as you see fit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ruth.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go to Dale, and then Israel, and then Charles.
Yes, I
And
wanted
just
to.
notice that
I wanted-
Shlomo has had his hand up a lot, but he
Okay, I
can't.
wanted-
He
I wanted-
doesn't have the yellow hand.
I wanted to know what is the provision in the Confederation for Jewish immigration?
The Confederation does not make any substantive recommendation. It doesn't deal with any of the substantive issues, including Jewish immigration or Palestinian immigration, Jewish right of return or Palestinian right of return, or Jerusalem, or the end of terrorism, or what to do with Palestinians that are in the diaspora or Jews that are in the, we do not have in the Constitution anything about the substance of how to resolve the conflict. we believe that in a democracy that would be implemented, we only are suggesting a system of fairness, a system of democracy for the people of Israel and Palestine, and let the 300 parliament members, Palestinians and Israelis, sitting together as equal, with representing their districts, sitting together. 55% of the Israeli parliament members and 55% of the Palestinian members will have to decide on every issue. And by the way, they will decide what the issues are. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will accept or that they will work based on the current issues. They will have a global eye view perspective, and their perspective is peace, not the Israeli perspective or the Palestinian perspective. They will have their own perspective, and they will negotiate in a fair way for the purpose of making peace, and all these issues will be decided by them, not by me, not by you, but by them.
How will they agree on that? How will they agree on the immigration issue?
They will, first of all, not necessarily that they will agree. That they may, in order for them to pass legislation, just like any normal Congress everywhere in the world. Every Congress has major issues. And sometimes they agree and sometimes they don't. The idea is that they will have a system to debate, a system to
Okay, but while they are disagreeing, what will be happening with immigration?
Well, we are not proposing the dismantling of the Israeli or the Palestinian government. So the Israeli and the Palestinian governments will continue to exist and will continue to function. And they will continue to function after the common government is existence, and they will have a veto power. The idea is that it's not necessarily that they will reach an agreement on every single issue. The idea is that they will debate every issue and may reach an agreement that will be acceptable, if they reach an agreement, that will be acceptable to the Israeli and the Palestinian government. That's what we do in our simulations. That's the purpose of the simulations, Dale, is to show that there are ways for the Israelis and the Palestinian people to agree and to create a situation where the Israeli and the Palestinian governments will have no choice but to accept that agreement, because otherwise they will lose legitimacy. Did I answer?
Okay, so in the meantime, while this process is going on, Jews will continue to be able to immigrate to Israel?
Yes, based on Israeli laws, absolutely.
Okay, and what's going to be going on with the settlements? They're going to continue to expand?
Look, that you are really pointing out why a common government is necessary. How do you stop the Israeli government or the Palestinian government from being, but mostly the Israeli government? The Israeli government is the big elephant in the room. How do you bring it to accepting peace? How do you bring it to be more logical, to be in favor of its own people? That's the question we are dealing with, and the way to deal with it, in our opinion, is to create a common government. Because if there is no common government, the Israeli public is being told that the Palestinians are unreasonable, that the Palestinians are the enemy, And therefore, we need to bring more Jews, and we need to have more settlements, and we need to have more weapons to fight the Palestinians. And the common government says, no, we have other ways to make peace. Okay, let's go to Israel. Israel Aharoni. You need to unmute, Israel.
Thanks. I'd like to just go over a few points. The first one is the idea of IPC. I believe that it is a very noble idea, but has no chance of being implemented unless there will be two sovereign states. Otherwise, the Palestinians will not agree to any common government. One. So my comment is, noble idea, but it has to be based on other things happening before. I do believe strongly in the two-state solution. And the two-state solution is based, to my mind, only on the Saudi initiative of 20 years ago of two states agreeing on some land that will be given to Israel, but in return, the Palestinians will get an exact land someplace else. I do believe and strongly believe that if United States will continue in the way they have acted so far, there will not be two-state solution and there will not be IPC. It's the only power in the world that can change things in the Middle East. I further believe that the Americans are now ready to do it, especially with a new government that is going to be sworn in the next few days. This government is going to have a confrontation, a frontal confrontation with the United States.
Yes, I agree.
United States will not be able to continue to support a country whose values are totally opposite to the values upon which the Democratic Party is built. If 43% of American Jews don't want anything to do with Israel, the Democratic Party is no longer afraid that the Jewish vote will go against them. On the contrary, I think the Jewish vote will go with them if they will decide to make a stand. You mentioned Shamir, Bush, and Baker. But you forgot to mention that Baker gave Shamir an ultimatum and even posted his phone number on television saying, Shamir called me. He forced Shamir to come to the meeting, and what the United States have to do is arrange a second meeting like this. The Palestinians will be the first to enter the door. The question will be, what will Israel do? Will Israel enter the door too? United States will have to force them. In parallel, by the way, what we are observing now, there is something that is slowly percolating in Hague, in the International Court of Criminal and in the International Court of Justice. Those two courts are about to deal with issues, with requests, for example, one request is from the Palestinian to decide, is Israel a temporary occupier or is Israel a permanent occupier? If the International Court of Justice rule that Israel is a permanent occupier, Israel will be sanctioned by United Nations and then also by the Security Council. The other one is the investigation of what happened in, I think it's called Shomer Chomot. In Hebrew, I don't know how to translate it. Guardian of the Walls
Yeah,
2 years ago, and what happened in Gaza. Israel has been accused of war crimes by the human rights, what is it called? The Council, the United Nations Human Rights Council
commission.
or Commission. So I come, just to summarize it, I believe United States will, I think, get involved. I think Israel will force to renounce the settlements. And this two-state solution means that the settlers will have to decide. They have three options: go back to Israel, stay as residents, or accept full citizenship of the Palestinian state. That's my beliefs.
Thank you. So you're basically saying, from what you're basically saying, well, let's have two-state first, and then we will have a confederation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so imagine a person goes to a doctor and he's 200-pound overweight, and he suffers from diabetes and heart condition and other ailments. And the doctor says, okay, you're 200 pounds overweight, you suffer from all these conditions. Just come back when you lose 200 pounds and you get rid of all these conditions, then I'll take care of you. That's basically what you're saying, because the two-state solution has been in existence as a possible solution since 1947. And we say, fine, you could agree to a two-state. We don't see that as a possibility. We don't see that as a likelihood. But just like the 200-pound person overweight, instead of saying come back when you lose your weight, we say we deal with it right now. It gives you the option of losing the weight, but the responsible thing is to deal with the situation right now and not wait for something to happen which has not occurred for over 74 years.
But the reason it did not occur is because United States did not make their mind to put their foot down and say, I will implement two-state solution.
Okay. If the United States will decide to put pressure on Israel, which I do not believe it would, it doesn't matter whether I believe it or not. If you want peace, you deal with reality right now. The reality is that there is no two-state. The reality is that for 74 years, this idea has been coming up and been rejected again and again and again.
By whom?
By Israel, by who? I don't really care by whom. It didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Well, until 1948, Israel did not exist.
Well, the United Nations vote took place in 1947, I believe.
But that's almost 100 years after Herzl.
Yes.
So
But-
it takes time.
Look, like I cannot emphasize, if you have a 200-pound overweight person, you deal with him. You don't tell him, come back when you lose 200 pounds. The same thing here. This two-state has not been established. It's, in my opinion, I don't know if you read Anthony Blinken's or saw his speech to J Street. I read it. I did not see it, but I read it. It sounded more like a speech to AIPAC than to J Street. In other words, the possibility that the Biden administration is going to follow the same line of thinking, in my opinion, is much greater than Biden switching now to something that we imagine could happen and force Israel to agree to a two-state solution. Israel will never agree to a two-state solution. If you said something about, is the occupation permanent or is it temporary? 54 years of occupation, the occupation is permanent. I don't know if you've seen.
Israel object to it.
I'm sorry?
Israel claim it's temporary.
Yeah, they claim it's
Because if
temporary.
it's
They claim
permanent-
there is no apartheid. They claim that many false things.
But if the rule is that the occupation is permanent, Israel will be accused of crimes against humanity.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like Russia. It's like Russia invaded Ukraine.
They may object to it in the International Court of Justice. But the reality, just like but the reality is that they are working more and more to make it permanent. The settlements, I don't know if you've seen that, but we had Gidon Levy. He basically said what I believe is completely true. The settlement projects completely annihilated the possibility of two-state. Not only are the settlements the problem, not the settlements is a major problem, but in my opinion, the highway system that is zigzagging all over the West Bank with bridges, with three, 4, 5 lanes in highways with an infrastructure, it makes it an impossibility to have these settlements removed, in my opinion. But look, the only chance of a two-state solution, in my opinion, if it is necessary, could come from a confederation. The confederation, the parliament members could decide to create two states. So what is the logical objection to have the confederation tomorrow, to have parliament members, Israelis and Palestinians tomorrow? They're not a military force and they are a rational force. So what's wrong with inserting some rationality into this conflict? Do you want to respond or shall I go to Ruth?
No, it's okay. Go to Ruth.
Yeah, did I say, oh, I'm sorry, Charles. And then Ruth.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I wanted to draw together a few threads and get back to your ask of everybody about writing letters. So a couple of things, like at the end of World War I, first there was a ceasefire, then there was negotiations, and then there was a division of territory. So, you know, if you think about it in that kind of a flow, then so far, all negotiations between the two governments have failed, and what the IPC offers is negotiation on a different basis that allows the populations to be able to start resolving their differences without relying on the governments to do so, which I think is its strong point. Now,
Charles, the IPC does not offer negotiation. The IPC offers democracy.
Yeah. It offers a forum with real democracy from which, you know, ideas can flow that would, you know, basically start the political fever on both sides to put the pressures on their governments to actually make real changes, which has never happened so far.
Right.
Now, FDR, when he was first elected and people came to him and said, we want this, we want that, he said, make me do it. And I think that if we look at this conflict and why the United States constantly supports this antagonistic situation in Israel, basically the United States and Israel are partners in hypocrisy in terms of the way what they profess to believe and how they actually practice it, not just with their own people, but internationally. And is each of them getting out of this in order to want to keep the conflict going? Now, my feeling is that you have to bring in these kind of outside influences to understand why this thing has gone on for so long. And one of the major ones I see actually is oil. Now, you know, the United States relying on basically being able to control the flow of oil in the world by having some leverage against the actual most of the oil producers in the world. And Israel is a very useful partner in that respect. And the United States has historically been perfectly willing to not just, you know, go hand in hand with dictators, but to actually overthrow governments when it gets in the way of their geopolitical concerns. So how do we put pressure on this situation where the hypocrisies are becoming so glaring, both within Israel and in the United States, and their support for this Israeli very, very right-wing government? And I think that should be, like, in terms of these letters, I think that should be a real selling point. My own state legislators, and I know, Joseph, you don't support BDS, but I don't really see there's a lot of distinction. When they talk about preventing anyone in government from doing business with anybody who supports BDS because it's anti-Semitic, that basically is against free speech.
Charles, can we take a short break? I need to take a short break. I'll be right back and I'll respond to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Yes, Charles, you're right.
Oh, who was that?
This is me, Shlomo.
Oh, yeah.
But we have to think why exactly the United States agree to this ethnic cleansing that is going on. What is really the hidden agenda that they have? How do they use Israel now? And for what? What is the plan?
Iran, Russia, and China.
Exactly, Iran #1, and I'm afraid that they are planning to use Israel like they use Ukraine against Russia. They are going to use Israel against Iran.
That's right.
Which means they will fight Iran to the last Israeli, and the Israelis are falling into this trap.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
And I think also they are preparing the attack on Iran.
Yes, absolutely. And they want Israel to provoke Iran as much as possible so that Israel will be the one who fighting and the Americans just provide the weapons. That's the agenda.
Yes, I think so.
Charles, can I respond to you regarding BDS?
Oh, sure. Let me just, can I say
Finish
one
your
more
point.
Okay. To draw the parallel with not just South Africa, but Cuba. So once it became no longer politically advantageous to kowtow to the South Floridian Cubans, there's been some movement, both from Obama and now from Biden. But it's important to see that these political situations are not monoliths. It's not like all the Palestinians are one day going to agree to this because they're Palestinian, and all the Democrats are going to agree to X, Y, Z, or all the Jews are going to think one way. I think what we're doing is we are, finding the fissures in the edifice of this rotten system, and we're chipping away at them. And sooner or later, the thing will crack open. So that's pretty much it.
Let me respond to you. And I think my response to your comment about BDS It's not, I do not object to BDS as a legitimate cause, okay? I think that it's not the right tactic. And let me explain to you why. If I believe I understand the Israeli culture and Zionism has been built on the notion that anti-Semitism is here to stay, that the whole world hates or potentially hates Jews, and therefore Jews need to have their own country to protect themselves from existing or anti-Semites or potential anti-Semites, that a Jewish state is necessary for that purpose. And in order to justify that, they need enemies. They need anti-Semites. They need to have an explanation for a Jewish state. Without enemies, if there would not be the necessity of having a Jewish state. In Hebrew, we say every year when on Passover, we say bechol dor vador ba'im aleinu lechalotenu ve'akadosh baruch hu metzilenu miyadam. What does that mean? It means that in every generation, they come upon us to destroy us, but the God Almighty is saving us. Okay, so Israel needs enemies. Israel needs enemies. And BDS is the proof, validates for Israel that the whole world is its enemy. So what does BDS does? It galvanizes all the Israelis, because now we realize the whole world is showing its ugly face, that we are the enemies of the world, and the world doesn't, the world wants to destroy us. So this is the opposite of what you need to do. That's why the IPC makes so much sense, because the IPC says, no, it's not the whole world against you. It's Israelis and Palestinians together have nothing. They're not your enemies. They want to create a democracy. And you always said that you want a democracy. So that's the issue that I have with BDS. I think it's the wrong tactic. It creates Israel to have a manifestation of what it believes in.
Well, can you think of another way we could approach to draw a very clear distinction between American values? Like I was using BDS to draw the idea of free speech, these anti-free speech regulations, basically, in order to attack BDS as a reaction against it. But obviously, there's so many ways in which professed American values are totally being violated. You articulated a number of them, but I think it would be interesting to be able to create a document, if you will, of the ways in which both Jewish Israeli values are violated and American values are violated in the actions of their respective governments in this situation.
I don't understand your question. Can you?
Well, I'm saying like, okay, when we write these letters about this situation to the various newspapers, and we offer IPC as a potential solution, I think a way in is to try and be very articulate about the ways in which American values, professed American values, separation of church and state, free speech, et cetera, are violated by American support for this Israeli government, or Jewish values, professed Jewish values of Judaism in terms of how you're meant to treat other people. I know that there's, very right wing, if you will, ways of articulating.
So are you looking for some language that would capture the hypocritical American policy towards Israel as an introduction to that letter?
Yeah, basically saying we cannot be, if you want to say that you're an American, then you stand for this, and you cannot stand for this and sign off on, the policies that we're.
But I think they're getting those letters all the time, and they're not going to reach the second paragraph. I think that you want to show them something new, and there's something new is because they get these letters. They get these letters that America violates its own policies in the Middle East. But if you show them there is something new, and you say, well, I participated, you may want to participate in a simulation. I think that that's a much more effective letter. But write it down. I'll look it up.
Okay.
Let's go to Sean and then Don Raphael. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Joseph. According to what you're saying about the BDS, because I frankly don't have anything good to think about BDS, because I'm finding them that they're not well organized. They don't know what their objective is, because frankly, some people are saying that they're doing BDS because they want to put sanction on Israel to comply with international law, which isn't which is good. That's what they want. They want Israel to.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's the way I see it. I don't see that they're being well efficient to the cause. I'm seeing that they're not really like their target. I don't know what their target is. Like, some people interpret that the BDS wants to dismantle Israel. Some people sees BDS as only trying to get Israel to leave the West Bank and to live in its own borders, right? However, but I don't think Israel is stupid. I don't think because, for instance, what are they trying to boycott? They're trying to boycott Israel, or they're trying to boycott the illegal companies that are in the West Bank that are not supposed to be in the West Bank. And however, when you try to boycott them, and then they say we were only after those companies that are illegally occupying the West Bank and doing production there. But unfortunately, if you try to do that, those companies that makes those products, they will say on the product, they won't say made in Israel, they'll say made in Palestine. So there's no way you can differentiate between what the illegal occupation and the actual companies in Israel. You can't, and that's why I don't really fully work. That's why I don't fully go with BDS. That's why I don't find BDS really efficient in its cause. That's why I think we need something a little more than something better. And I believe the IPC is a lot better than the BDS, because BDS for me, it's not going in one direction. It's going through so many different directions that you can't tell what their main objection is. So that's why I don't really follow with BDS.
I agree. They don't have a vision like we have. We have a constitution. We say this is our vision. This is our vision. We are not threatening anybody. We have a vision that accommodates both people, and we have a vision for democracy. The problem is, the good thing about it is that neither side can oppose it, because that's what I keep saying. Could you tell me what is wrong with it if it is being implemented now? And their response is, it's not going to happen. But that's not a response to the merits of the IPC. And because Israelis cannot deny that they want a democracy.
All right.
And the Palestinians cannot deny that they want a democracy either. The Palestinians, nobody can deny that they want equality. So,
I'm sorry, Joseph.
yes,
The new government of Israel does not want democracy the way we understand it.
yeah, but they are not going to expressly say we are a non-democratic government. They always say, they always say we are a Jewish democracy, which is a contradictory term, but the world bought us.
Some people are not, even some Jews. I don't know if you know Rami Barkan, but he's saying he's not a right. He's a privileged Jew living in Israel, and he doesn't feel like he has fully rights compared to any other countries he lives in. So I don't know if you met him, but no, a lot of Jews in Israel are making this statement about Israel that they're
It
not.
is an individual, but they cannot really publicly, maybe publicly, but the authorities, the prime minister, whatever. If I asked Netanyahu today, what is your objection to the IPC? He said, I'm not going to have it. I don't have any objection. I know it's not going to happen because Palestinians will never agree to it. Or they always say, when I have a salesperson coming to my door and I want to get rid of him, what do I say? I need to talk to my wife. Okay. That's what they said. Let's talk to someone else. Let's have they don't want to say what's wrong. They don't want to articulate their own objection because that would expose them. It would expose them to show their racism, to show their unwillingness to have peace.
Oh, I agree. Like
Excuse me. Oh, sorry, Joseph.
Yeah, let's go to Dawn.
Excuse me, Joseph. Is it okay if I just say one sentence?
Please.
Just one sentence. I'm sorry to be so ill-mannered.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
I'd like to draw your attention, especially attention of the Jewish people that are present, my fellow participants, to an article that I found very interesting in an Israeli newspaper this morning, Haaretz. It's written by a rabbi called Rabbi Daniel Landes. And the title of the article is The Profound Moral Failure of Religious Zionism. Now, if you read it, it's interesting. It's very interesting. Thank you.
Oh,
The Profound Moral Failure of Religious Zionism by Rabbi Daniel Landes.
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I wrote an article, a case against Zionism. Dawn.
Yes, thank you, Joseph, and it's good to be here with all of you. I come from a background here. I live in San Francisco. I've been involved with Libby Troutman on the call with the Jewish Palestinian Living Room Dialogue Group. I've been very involved in the past, not so much in the present, with J Street and the local Bay Area representation. And I've been a board member of the American Friends of Combatants for Peace, which is a joint Israeli-Palestinian activist on the ground working towards the end of the occupation and peace in the Middle East. So I want to say, first of all, I've been sitting in the last 4 or 5 or 6 months on Libby's recommendation on these IPC simulations and gatherings, and I've been really impressed by the substance of the events, the conversations, the dialogue. For me, it's exciting because I think a lot of it's getting really diluted now. I see just goes on and on, like you point out, Joseph, nothing ever gets done. It's a failure, and it's very frustrating. So I'm very impressed with the IPC. But my only comments really on kind of the outside looking in is with these simulations, it might be something to think about creating more continuity. I find the simulations kind of repeat themselves. And so you don't get continuity maybe of people joining in who have been part of the prior ones.
Yeah. No,
I'm not quite sure how that can be done, but to create some ongoing continuity, maybe some representation, maybe generate members. And my other just sort of question or comment about the simulation of the districts. I find the concept a little confusing on what's a Jewish or Palestinian district, given Israel proper, the West Bank, and Gaza, and all the complications and all the mixed districts. So I think there's some things that maybe need to be clarified. So that's just sort of some input. And the other thing, other 2 things I wanted to say to the group and to you is I'm a US voice. I'm looking at this from the diaspora. I'm an American Jew I'm steeped in that culture. I've been steeped in watching Israel from afar. I have many, many problems, but it's hard for me to join the simulation as a Israeli or Palestinian representative. I'd like a voice from the diaspora. So I don't know if that's like as an advisory. There's a lot of discussion here today about the US and Israel. And I think our voice needs to be heard. What the government is doing is different than what the people are doing. And, you know, the vast majority of the American Jewish community is not supportive of these Israeli government policies, not the people, but our voice is not being heard. So it'd be nice and interesting, either as an advisory. I'd love to participate in this fully, but I'd like to participate from where I'm coming from. I have things to say about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but we don't really have a voice. So I can simulate, pretend I'm an Israeli or a Palestinian, but it's not true to my voice. So just something to think about, because I love what you're doing here. And I think that if there's ways to drive this visibility, contacting the press, but maybe creating more continuity and membership.
What do you mean by continuity?
Well, I find on the simulations, it's the same examples each time. There's example of the checkpoints and different. It would be nice to actually start building a body of common government policies. Granted, it's a simulation, it's not an actual government. And then build on that so that if I come back to a simulation, it's building on the one that I was participated in before.
You're absolutely right. We actually have a lot more legislation that we could present. The problem is that when I meet with the speakers a week before, and it's very, very hard for them to conceptualize. And so I have to demonstrate for them the most basic legislation that could affect that would exemplify how the common government will work. And I always have to go back to the same ones because these are the only ones that they're the best one there. So it makes it easier for me to demonstrate it for them. And if I start with some more advanced legislation, then it gives them a way to say, well, you know, you're not really dealing with the real issues. You're not really dealing with that's why I keep on going to the first, to the same issue.
But I think what Dan is saying, I think, is, for example, even today, you started the simulation today, but I've heard it before. What Dan wants is, if he comes to second meeting or second simulation, that it will be a continuation of the first one.
Right.
Not starting from the beginning of the first one. Am I correct, Dan?
Yeah, I agree. He is correct. And the other thing is we always have some new people that have to be introduced. It's not like we have the same people over and over. I don't know who is going to show up. The other thing about the simulation, which you said, is that you're having, I had someone yesterday tell me, Joseph, your simulations are not real. They don't have real Israelis and real Palestinians. And I said, true, they don't. They are only for purpose of demonstration. They are not for a purpose to explain the concept. They are not. So, you know, I was in the military, in the Israeli military. What did we do? We do simulations of war. Now, when we simulated war, it was not real. In other words, we were not shot at. We only shot at some objects, pretending that it's a war. But that's the best you can do. You cannot really have a real simulation under real circumstances. It's just not a possibility. The purpose of the simulation is to demonstrate to explain it, not to convince, but to just give you an explanation of how this common government could work. Let's go to Shlomo Orr.
Okay, briefly, so people say much of what they want to say. with John Mitchell. We missed him. So he, just to re-emphasize what he said, was saying that there is no symmetry here. And it is not like, I mean, the concept of equally wanted, it's either us or them, which is a very strong argument. And then the idea that we have a war or a conflict even. There is no war or conflict. There is occupation. There is a brutal occupation and ethnic cleansing of one people by other people, of the underdog by the updog. And the updog never, and there is no incentive to ask for equality. Of course, the underdog would like to have equality and justice. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, there are two, now with regard to IPC, there are two major objects. One, the common Israeli is afraid to have total free borders. Let's kumbaya, let's have together, because after so much abuse and so much evil that has done to the Palestinians, we are afraid. We are afraid that they will revenge, because if we were them, then we would revenge. And so we are afraid of what they will do once they are free. Now they are, you poke the lion in the cage. You poke it and you poke it, and then you open the gate. That's one thing. The other thing is money. Without huge investment, there will be no, because we need the investment for several things. One of them is the media. The media is being bought by, by the big power. So to penetrate the media, you need money, and you need money to start entice and the Israelis and the other side to have a solution that everybody wins here, everybody gets something. I don't know how to do it. If you go back to the Zionism, remember the Balfour Declaration was not given to Herzl or to any of the leaders. It was given to Rothschild. And there is something about the West Bank that brings to mind investments and brings to mind that here you have a situation where one people can grab the land and take the homes of other. This was also the Holocaust. The Holocaust was much about getting the property of the Jews, and they got it. And here the same. You want the properties of the other people, and you can get it, and you can get it for free. Yeah, some bad blood will spill, but you have it. And that's what Ben Gvir and Smotrich and all of these guys, that's what they are about. There is no religion, it's all excuses to really grab what you want. So you are facing these huge forces and big money investment, and that's the enemy that we are facing. But still, I think what you are doing is fantastic. Is the only hope. It's one light ray in the darkness.
Let me just respond to your. It's true that there are many enemies on the Israeli side and also on the Palestinian side. But what I am saying is that this is not a monolithic society. Israel is not a monolithic society. The Palestinians are not a monolithic society. So what the IPC does, it can connect between the reasonable, rational people on both sides. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let's go to Giacomo.
Did you
yeah,
hear me? Oh, sorry. I said we all commend you for what you're doing, Joseph. You're doing wonderful work. I'm sorry, Giacomo, I've interrupted you. I just wanted to praise Joseph.
Write the letter. Yeah, hi.
Yes, I praise Joseph also for this great idea. I don't know if one way of because I was talking about creating more continuity and creating some new dynamics in these meetings. If there could be some way of having like a founding committee for the IPC Parliament, where a group of us could come together to formulate proposals for legislation new proposals for legislation that then could be submitted to these simulated meetings and could be somehow used as a way of saying, well, these are the things that we would be proposing if there were a IPC parliament. In other words, create something a bit more realistic or more to the point, and maybe have members who make proposals on the basis of what's going on in Israel and Palestine at the moment. I'm not so in touch with the everyday developments there. But anyway, having something where proposals go beyond the normal, our ideas of the economic zone and education and so on, but see if there can be new ideas that come up and change them over time, so that there's a bit more variety and more ideas that can be developed.
Okay, we have a lot more legislation. I want to show you. We have common police force. We have teaching tolerance, joint economic zone. We have taxation alliance between the Israeli and the Palestinian government with the IPC. In other words, asking the Israeli government and the Palestinian government to contribute part of their taxes to the IPC. Let me show you more. I mean, we have a lot more. I mean, maybe it's time for me to ask you about the one that financial foundation for the IPC. Peace with improve relations with Iran, Hezbollah, and other neighboring countries, because the IPC is its own institution, its own government. It can negotiate separately from the Israeli and the Palestinian government. Where is this? What happened? Okay.
Joseph, can I ask you a question?
Do you guys see my screen?
No, it's vanished.
Oh, okay. That's
Can I ask you a question? Would it be envisageable to have us adopting resolutions on issues like if there's new violence in whatever, in some town, where we as IPC adopt some statement about it, using the formula of the simulations? I don't know if that could be a way of making it more topical.
I need to understand it better. Okay, here
well, for instance, there was this violence in Jerusalem a few months ago with Palestinians.
But that falls under the common police force, basically.
Well, but we could adopt a resolution rather than a legislation, and that could be our actual statement that we could use perhaps in public relations.
But the purpose is to show the IPC could resolve the issues, not that the IPC is anti-Israel or anti-Palestinian coming up with declaration. The purpose is to demonstrate that a common government could resolve the issues. That's the purpose of the legislation, not just to come up with declarations, unilateral declarations. High-speed train, converting Kalandia, declaration of peace. That's a declaration contrary to what I said. Civil family law, redrawing the wall, demolition of the wall, IPC demand to the superpower, stop sending weapons, requesting reconsideration, further, okay. Seeking UN recognition, common passport, spread, common ability to spread, to have the inoculations against viruses, improve construction standards, remuneration, civil marriages and divorce, creating a liaison office between Israel and Palestine, creating Confederation citizenship for humanitarian reasons for people that are in the limbo. There are thousands of them in Israel, Palestine. Okay, now I have this this new legislation, and I want to hear your voice. You see, Gaza and Israel. Okay, this is what it looks like now. Changing it to this. In other words, having instead of this, have this. So the legislation is, Dan was very much against it. The legislation is to Gaza, Israel, Disney authorization, the Israeli Palestinian Parliament, the Israeli government, Hamas government, and the Palestinian Authority hereby authorize the president of the Israeli Palestinian Confederation to commence negotiation with the Disney Corporation to construct a Gaza-Israel Disneyland at the border between Gaza and Israel. We authorize the IPC president to make the following representation on our behalf. We agree to allocate a substantial area to the Disney Corporation to conduct the Gaza-Israel Disneyland. We agree that Gaza and Israel will each allocate 50% of the land and will each provide equal number of employees. We agree to halt military hostility and guarantee that Gaza-Israel Disney will be protected from violence. Okay, so I just want to hear your reaction to this legislation, because what do you think about this, to bring this legislation?
Fantastic.
I'm sorry?
Fantastic.
Fantastic, okay. Can we, Dan, can we do to take a poll here about whether I should bring this legislation or not? Do you agree with the legislation? Say yes or no. You can vote. Okay. So can you publish the vote? Share results. Okay, so 86% of you agree with, so I'll bring it up next time in the next simulation. I'll bring that legislation. Dan suggested I should not bring it, and my wife said I should not bring it, but I was very much in favor of it.
Well,
Go
as you
ahead,
said before,
Israel.
that's a good idea. Anybody, I'm surprised people can be against it. The only problem is, it's already, we want to decide to which high school our son will go before the son was even conceived. We first of all have to have IPC before we can have Disneyland.
I'm sorry, we have to have an
IPC before we have Disneyland.
Israel,
sure.
we need a vision here. It's like Herzl said, if you wish, that it is no panacea. I mean, at the time,
I voted yes, Shlomo. I voted yes.
I know, but this is
I'm
an
just
attempt.
saying that I would like to spend my time right now in discussion about today.
Could I comment about Giacomo's suggestion?
Yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Giacomo, but I think what he's referring to is to pick a topic that the entire simulation would be focused on for the length of the simulation, and that topic would be something that would be more topical in the sense of the political ongoing situation in Israel and Palestine. So not necessarily, a resolution where we just say this or that, but we imagine that, the IPC is in existence. There is this issue that is in conflict, be it a particular settlement where people are taking land or whatever, or water use, something. And then we try and go into that in more depth. And then the next simulation, we pick a different thing. And so on and so forth.
Okay, but
And we can actually, exactly, and my idea is that you can actually then publish a press release saying the IPC adopted legislation, even if it's all us pretending. I mean, we can issue something that can go out in the social media, which is more topical and can perhaps attract people's attention to what we're doing to attract more people and reach out to a greater audience by connecting our activities to something that's really happening in the news at the moment.
Yeah, well, look, the purpose of the IPC and the purpose of the simulation is to demonstrate that there could be legislation that both sides will have to accept, that they will not be able to reject. So it's not we are not having a discussion about Israel and Palestine. We are having a discussion about the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation proposal for a solution. Now, someone already suggested, if you have a legislation, send it to me, and I'll put it on. But we have to scrutinize it. We can't just have it in a vacuum. All right. Does anyone else have any comments or questions they want to make?
I do.
Yeah. Hi,
I
Libby.
do.
Hi, Libby. Yeah.
I wanted to share briefly that when we started the Jewish Palestinian Living Room Dialogue Group 30 some years ago, when the people came, they were professors, they were citizens, refugees, there was a great assortment. And we made the mistake not knowing that they started by arguing over who was at fault, whose history caused this, whose border was that, and so forth and so on. And very quickly, people kind of got tired of that, and they said their piece and felt like they were finished, and they left. So we realized soon that that was not the way to begin. And we recalled the group and we reassembled, and we said, we're not going to start with history, with borders and boundaries and a treaty. We're going to start with who's in the room and why are you here and why do you care? And it was all about building human connections and meeting each other as human and equal. And seeing that when push came to shove, everybody really wanted the basic same things: a safe, secure life, a way to make a living, the ability to provide for our children and so forth. And that changed everything. And that dialogue group has continued, as Don said, for 30 years, with people coming and going and dying, but having their lives change because they met the other, which was very unusual. When we started the dialogue, it was taboo to meet with the other. And people even feared of their own communities with what would happen. So over the years, what I see clearly is it's all about relationships. And it's about seeing the other people as human and equal, and that if one benefits, we all benefit. And so when we talk about, and Joseph, you said in the beginning, I think you talked about 1% people, a certain number of people who've gotten this idea. And I have asked several of the speakers when they've come on, what do you think about grassroots? And they said, well, it's really about the people, but there's just not enough. Not enough people have helped push that S curve of change to the point where this movement is unstoppable. So I think our goal is to get more people involved through hearing each other's stories, seeing each other as human and equal, and that in the long term, if we could make these changes that the Confederation is talking about, that serves for the good of everybody, it would make life and peace and the economy flourish in a way that it can't right now. And so if we could do something to further along, promote this. I talk about IPC to a lot of people who've never heard of it, don't know about it. If we could get more people who are part of Don's group of Combatants for Peace and Bereaved Parents and the ALMAP, Alliance for Middle East Peace, 150 groups, Israelis and Palestinians, if we could get more of those people in the know and participating, it'd be fantastic if we could have some kind of a in-person conference where all these people could come together and brainstorm and build on this so that we're not picking away at it week by week. Joseph, you must be pulling your hair going over this over and over and over and over again and again. It's time to really make it grow and flower and expand and reach out as quickly as possible. So maybe these letters to the editor, maybe I think going into the classrooms and introducing this to the students is fantastic. We did a lot of that with the Jewish Palestinian. We went into universities and high schools, and it's a life-changing experience to meet the other and to be able to talk about this. So I just say, you know, good for you for hanging in there. You've been so patient. But I agree with Dawn that we have to figure out a way to really make this move much more quickly and engage a lot of people so that they understand the power of relationships and what it can do for the community at large.
Thank
I
you.
agree, Libby. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Shlomo, go ahead.
Very quickly. So yeah, we need, so it consistent with everything is that we need people from Hamas, we need people from Gaza, we need people from Palestine to represent themselves. And then we can show the world, look, we are talking, look, Hamas, which by the way, Kedar say there is no way you can talk to Hamas. Yeah, there is a way. And yes, they are interested in peace. And yes, they are interested in equal. So if we show it, this is a demonstration to the world, it can happen. And of course, the human thing, the human touch. It just occurred to me, I mean, IPC.
By the way, I do send emails to Hamas and asking them to join.
Excellent. Yeah, we need them. We need them in.
Okay,
So yeah,
I
and another.
want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the basis for the IPC, from what I understand, and I'm very new to this group, is that you from what you said, I heard you say today, you're assuming that the parliament members that are elected will be rational. How do you know that the parliament representatives that are elected are going to be rational?
Well, they have to swear allegiance to the Constitution. And they have to, that's a very good question. They have to swear allegiance to the Constitution. They have to accept the Constitution in order to run for parliament. And they have to represent their district. They don't represent the nation of Israel or Palestine. They represent their district.
But what if their people in their district are extremists?
Yeah, the people in their district, some of them will be, but they have to pass legislation that benefits their district, and they have to work together with other parliament members, Israelis and Palestinians. So the process itself, and it requires them to be rational, requires them to be pragmatic. If they are extremists themselves, then they will not be able to participate and bring any benefit to their district. This is why we do the simulation, because this is why I say, well, who do you represent? I represent Gaza. So if we build an international airport, you're going to be against your people. You're going to be against employment to your people, and then they understand and they say, no, okay, no, I want employment for my people. The practicality, the reality makes them rational. The reality that they have to deal with other Israelis and other Palestinians makes them rational at the end of the day. So Shlomo, can you finish your comments?
It occurred to me, IPC is better than ICC, or either IPC or ICC, something along this line. Just because that's the substitute. That's all.
All right, Sean.
Just one more thing I just wanted to say. It's a little bit off topic, but Joseph, there's Gaza and then there's West Bank that Israel occupies, which was not supposed to occupy. But the other thing on top of that Israel also occupied the other territory, the Golan Heights, which is not Palestine, which is Syria, right? Now, you think you can get those people that are living in the Golden Heights to come in the Confederation, because it doesn't only concern Israel, Palestine also concerns the Syrian, which their land was the Golden Heights, right? Because right now, I think Israel needs also to have peace with the Syria, not just Palestine, because now it's almost like a hostile area right now, because the only country Israel has peace with is Egypt and Jordan. The only country they don't have is with Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine. So I think that's also play a role in what the IPC doing right now, is to try not also with Palestine, but also with those other borders and those other people, which Israel has a problem with. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. I keep saying at the beginning, people never really took me up on that, but I said the IPC could make peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians and with the neighbors. In other words, if you have Israelis and Palestinians together in the same government, it makes Jews, Christian, and Muslim together, it makes it much easier for them to negotiate with Iran, with Syria, with Lebanon, with Hezbollah, with Hamas, because they are taking ownership of that land together.
so you don't mind, like with the IPC, I know you're wanting to have Palestinian, real Israeli in the parliament, because we're just a simulation, right? But if you could also get the other people from Syria or somewhere to come and join this confederation, I think that'll make it even more better. Like, because I don't live in those lands, but to try to get more people, and you, like, I should go ask people more about the IPC, ask us more about our organization, wherever I could find them. Okay,
Look, I got the message. We need some to refresh ourselves, and I got the message. The way I'm thinking now is to have a combination of this simulation and personal engagement, and I'll think about that. How to, and if you can send me an email how to create a combination of the two, because I agree with Libby that personal connection is extremely personal. Meeting and personal is extremely important. I agree, but I also want to convey I don't want to turn it into just a kumbaya meeting. I want to demonstrate that the IPC has an ability to make peace, and so maybe we can connect the two together. Charles, did you want to make a comment?
I wanted to, if possible, I wanted to ask Lawrence Wilkerson a quick question, if he's there, about his opinion on the influence of oil on the geopolitics of the U.S.-Israel relationship.
Larry?
Well, it's an issue that I monitored for a long time while I was at State, and then after State. And then I read Gary Vogler's book. Gary was the ExxonMobil, Royal Dutch Shell, you name it, oil expert who we sent to Iraq. He was there for about 6 years. I read his book and I challenged his book in some ways, though I appreciated what he tried to do. So he wrote another book. And then he just wrote one that he sent me the manuscript of just last week. I just finished reading it. It is, in a sense, a bombshell with regard to Mark Rich and how Mark Rich got Israel discounted oil. And when I say discounted, I mean significant discount on oil prices from Iran, Syria, and Iraq, violating U.S. sanctions all the time he was doing it. That's one reason why he went to jail, or was supposed to go to jail, until Clinton pardoned him, of course. Bill Sapphire said that was the most despicable act of an American president in a long, long time. I agree with Bill Sapphire. Clinton pardoned him in the 24th hour of his presidency. And what's happened after the 2003 invasion is that part of the reason for that invasion and part of the work around the periphery of that invasion was to reinstitute what the invasion had essentially put a stop to, this discounted oil going to Israel. The long and the short of it is that Israel has been getting this. Go back and check Netanyahu's comments when he was finance minister, for example, and you'll see this, all of which is in the manuscript Gary sent me. Israel has been getting this discounted oil at such a constant flow and such a discount that has fueled Netanyahu's electability. It has fueled the Israeli economy. And so what I was saying is the United States couldn't get out of this if it wanted to. Netanyahu is its man, and the United States is Netanyahu's sugar daddy, not just in the traditional sense, but in the sense of Israel's economy now depends upon this.
What do you mean by the United States is Israel's sugar daddy?
Well, as I said in my earlier comment, one of the things I had to do as Chief of Staff of the State Department was to go to the annual budget meetings and monitor them, partly for the Secretary, partly for myself. And what I saw every year was 3.7 billion going to Egypt to keep the peace treaty, essentially a bribe, and 3.7 billion going to Israel without even debate. It just went. It left about, at that time, about $1 billion for all other U.S. foreign policy priorities. That's how indebted Israel is, or we are, depending on your perspective, to that relationship. And it's hugely, hugely injurious to American foreign policy.
And why is it that the United States keeps on giving sugar to Israel?
Well, part of the reason now, as I said, is this relationship. We created Netanyahu in many respects with this discounted oil over such an extended period of time, first as finance minister and then through a number of prime ministerships. And Israel's economy is booming. Israel's gone from something like 8 billionaires to over 70, which per capita is more than the United States. It's a hugely successful, if not the most successful economy in the world. And the reason is it's energy. It gets energy at discounted prices on a consistent basis, and it gets it insured by the United States. So this is a relationship now, which is not just a relationship of, let's say, deep-pocketed Jewish Americans who contribute to congressmen and buy them essentially and get them to vote again and again and again for things that favor Israel, to include this big, huge payout every year. But it's also a relationship that works both ways now. Israel is our person, our state, our landing place in the Middle East, a very fractured, tumultuous Middle East right now. Why do we have troops in Syria? That's in Gary's manuscript too. We have troops in Syria because they're protecting that pipeline which goes to Haifa and delivers some of this discounted oil. And we're not even in Syria internationally correctly. That is to say, we're violating international law to be in Syria because the vested government, the recognized government of Syria, has not invited us to be there. We're an outlaw state in Syria, and we're there and we're protecting the oil flow to Haifa.
I see.
Uh,
For those of you who don't know, those of you who don't know, Larry used to be Colin Powell's chief of staff.
So we want to hear much more from him.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Surely.
Larry, so do you see our cozy relationship with Israel as an extension of the fossil fuel control over the U.S. political system? How does it benefit them?
Well, it's a part of that, but it's a very small part of that. I think it'd be better to ask Gary that question because he knows it a lot better than I. What it really is an assurance that the United States has that unsinkable aircraft carrier, just like Taiwan is vis-a-vis China, always available to land on, as it were. Not that we would land on it, but we certainly would count on it for support, logistic support, and air support, and other things in a very volatile region of the world. People who say we're backing off the Middle East, that's poppycock. We have more troops deployed in the Middle East than we do anywhere else in the world.
We have a singer, we cannot speak to, yeah. Okay. let's go to Israel and then we'll close. We're more than 2 hours already in.
I got to
Israel.
run, Joseph. Thank you. Thank you for letting me.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Israel, did you want to make a comment? You need to unmute, I think.
We're not hearing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Just a short comment. Expansion on what Larry said. Israel economy is so big that its GDP per person is $55 million, $1,000. The Palestinians are maybe 1,600. How can those two economies share together?
You're asking me?
Yes. In IPC idea, how the two economies can be in cooperation, in confederation.
Well,
What's happening?
the Israeli will still continue to have their government, and the Palestinian will still continue to have their government. It will be up to them to decide in what way to cooperate that will be beneficial to both. For example, if we create a joint economic zone with Gaza and Israel and joint airport, it would be beneficial, tremendously beneficial to both sides, despite the disparity in their economic status. It's even more disparity between Israel and Gaza. But Gaza could give Israel access to the Arab world, to Africa, and Israel could give Gaza employment. Did you know that the state of California, with 40 million people, one of the biggest economies in the world, is in the same system as Wyoming. Wyoming has 600,000 people, much smaller economy. With California, 40 million people, huge economy. But there is benefit to both. It doesn't mean that that cooperating with someone that has less economic value than you is not to your benefit. It could be to your benefit. You work on it. You decide how to make it win-win for both, the poor and the rich. Okay, let me go to closing remarks, and then we will end. So I believe that Israeli-Palestinian government and the Israeli and the Palestinian governments are unable to make peace. They have proven that they are not able to make peace. They have proven that they are not able to make two states. That the solution is a democracy. Democracy means equality, and equality means peace, and democracy means peace. That in the long run, we could have an online election. Like I said, the purpose right now is to have coverage in the press. But I just want to remind you that the country of Estonia, with 9.5 million people, and 40% has 40% of its people voting online, that common election is possible. And a war between Israel and Gaza, one day of war, is over $100 million. $100 million could create the common government and could have it function for several years. So what we need is grassroots financial support, and I know a lot of you have supported and sent contribution. I thank you so much. But you can share, and like I said before, we need press coverage, and if you need the text of a letter, I'll be happy to send it to you. But that's, so with that in mind, we will end for today and end the event for today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Joseph. Happy
All right.
Hanukkah holidays
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
yourself and your
Happy
family,
holidays.
and you do take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye to my fellow
Bye-bye.
participants, all of them.